BO7 Marketing and Call of Duty Next, we have gotten a whole host of information about the newer versions of our old Primus/Ultimus characters, and it seems that they are not quite the characters we remember. Based on information shared largely by the COD blog and narrative lead Dan Lofer, these characters are all ripped from different timelines and have ended up in the dark ether for reasons we'll have to discover as the seasons progress. They have told us we will find out at some point come the end of the game, and that's going to be a major plot point. But they are not Ultimus or Primus, they are different versions we haven't seen before. That's right, they aren't from a single world like Ultimus or Primus where they all came from the same place, but are all from different realities, which seems to be consistent with the leaks we first heard over a year ago now. So in this video, I want to really get into what we know about these characters and see what we can figure out about their histories. I'll start with Nikolai.
Nikolai is a Soviet tanker in their 1980s conflict in Afghanistan.
The COD blog then tells us that Nikolai is a Soviet tank commander who arrives in the dark ether from the brutal mountainous landscape of 1984 Afghanistan, where duty, disillusionment, and misfortune collided. Scarred by war and haunted both by betrayal and his own decisions, he masks his bitterness with dark humor, yet remains a steadfast warrior when the shells begin to fall. The time period this new Nikolai comes from is rather different from where we knew him. Though as a Soviet soldier in a protracted conflict, he would still have known all too well the sacrifices his previous versions were aware of. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan is the conflict where this Nikolai was forged. Brewing for decades, the situation in Afghanistan was complex, and it is in many ways still playing out to this day. Initially becoming independent from the British Empire in 1919, the newly established independent Afghanistan quickly established a friendship with the equally fresh Soviet Union, both harboring strong anti-imperialist sentiments. Through World War II and subsequent local conflicts relating to borders, the Soviets always endeavored to support Afghanistan, who in turn grew closer to the USSR. However, things would truly come to a head in the 1970s, with the socialist government of the now Republican Afghanistan having enacted laws that horrified the rural conservatives of the country. They rose up to defend what they saw as essential to Islam, the Mujahideen, and seized the town of Herat. Uprisings began everywhere, and while being quelled, it was clear that the government was weak and the army was not up to standard. Afghanistan's leader, in the eyes of the Soviet Union, was too incapable of handling the issue, which threatened to inflame tensions within the nearby regions of the Soviet Union. And so, in 1979, it was decided to invade the country to both provide assistance to the government and replace the leadership. The Soviets conducted an assault upon the palace of the friendly government in a lightning-fast operation, using Spetsnaz, Soviet Special Forces, and tank crews to cripple the communications capability of the upper echelons of Afghanistan's military, enabling them to take command. Here is our first instance of where Nikolai might have been, as tanks were ubiquitous in this conflict. Notably in this event, Soviets actually captured 3 tanks of the Afghanistani army and fired them at the palace as a confusion tactic, and this could have even been Nikolai himself in the Zombies canon. With such a blatant act of foreign aggression, different bands of Mujahideen, many of whom were ideologically opposed and may not have even disliked the prior regime, were now all united against the Soviet Union, and the miserable conflict often called the USSR's Vietnam truly began, as the Soviets tried for 10 years to hold the country. In Black Ops 2, we get a glimpse of the guerrilla warfare that the Soviets had to endure in the mission Old Wounds. During this period, Nikolai would have likely had to endure sabotage by the Mujahideen and the Chinese and American forces operating in secret, who would have witnessed his comrades be blown up by roadside bombs. And as a member of a tank crew, if another member of his battery was destroyed, the chance of survival was slim. The COD blog gives us the specific date of 1984 for when this Nikolai comes from. That's significant as it marks an increase in Mujahideen raids on Afghan and Soviet posts, encouraged by the CIA. This means that, during this period, this Nikolai will have been constantly beset by sabotage, raids, and death. Reading more into this, the blog specifically tells us that for Nikolai, duty, disillusionment, and misfortune collided for him. What exactly occurred? He's reportedly not only scarred by the horrors of the war, but also haunted by betrayal and his own actions. We are not certain yet how these characters even ended up in the Dark Ether, aside from the fact that they are from different realities. But if we assume it's anything like the other instances we've seen in Ashes of the Damned, this Nikolai could have been ordered to investigate an artifact uncovered by accident in the ancient sands of the Afghan desert. After all, Afghanistan is one of the cradles of human civilization. Where better to uncover an ancient artifact of the Dark Ether? The Soviet brass of this time may well be much like that encountered by Kazimir Zykov in the main reality of the Dark Ether saga. And so, this Nikolai may have been betrayed by command and volunteered to investigate whatever it was they found. Perhaps his story is simpler. We know that bloodshed weakens the veil between reality and the Dark Ether, so perhaps Nikolai was sacrificed along with his comrades to make a territorial gain, or forced to commit war crimes which still haunt his psyche. Regardless, by 1984, he was ripped from his world and sent to the Dark Ether. Moving over, we have Tank Dempsey.
Dempsey, fresh from battle in Vietnam.
Then, the COD blog says this incarnation of Tank Dempsey is a battle-hardened US Marine who most recently fought through the jungles of 1968 Vietnam with grit, sarcasm, and a relentless will to survive. In this fractured reality, his distrust of his new companions and the unfamiliar surroundings have turned this otherwise dependable soldier into the unpredictable wildcard of the group. In all of our previous encounters with Dempsey, he was always a US Marine, very loyal to his country, perhaps with a temper, and ready to fight the undead. Here, it looks like it is no different, but this time he comes to us from the Vietnam War, a departure from his prior World War I and World War II service. Vietnam has, of course, been integral in the overall Black Ops story, with Black Ops 1 in particular having a large portion of its campaign set during that. In Black Ops 1, we saw events like the battles of Hue City and Khe Sanh, with CIA agent Alex Mason working alongside Woods and Bowman from McAfee SOG, all the while trying to uncover essential leads on Dragovich's Nova 6 program, which had been tested on the civilians of neighboring Laos by Kravchenko. Other characters we know of also operated in the periphery of this. Russell Adler was in a different detachment also involved in the Battle of Hue City, and even more crucially, Major Mackenzie Carver fought in Vietnam. Carver, being involved in Operation Apex Snow, was left with clear psychological trauma that never left him. It's possible that, by meeting another Vietnam veteran, one who may have been ripped straight from Vietnam itself, he may be able to process some of that trauma. While the possible connection to past Black Ops plotlines may work as a new set dressing, especially with all of these campaign events being in 1968 during the Tet Offensive, Dempsey is always Dempsey. He sort of has to be. For both Primus and Ultimus, even though he may differ slightly in temper, he has to be the good soldier, the bona fide American hero, as Dr. Monty put it.
On over 18 million occasions, Dempsey gave his life for the sake of his team. He's a bona fide American hero.
And so he likely has to be that here as well. The COD blog tells us the unpredictable situation and surroundings have turned Dempsey into an unpredictable wildcard. But to return that to Monty's quote I just gave to you in full, he only calls himself a hero because, on over 18 million occasions, Dempsey gave his life for the sake of his team. If Dempsey has been willing to put his life on the line in every reality across time and space, I very much doubt this new Dempsey will be any different. But perhaps Treyarch will surprise us. One interesting aspect of him that has been brought up by some recently, though, is his upbringing. In Liberty Falls, we can find a gravestone of a Ruth Dempsey, 1980 to 1900. This woman, sadly, only seems to have lived for 20 years, and this new Tank Dempsey looks approximately in his 20s to 40s somewhere. So, at the earliest, he was born in 1920. Clearly, this Ruth Dempsey isn't his mother or another direct relation, but what this does tell us is that very clearly there is a Dempsey family present in Liberty Falls, one that might even exist to this very day. Indeed, it's even possible that USMC Quartermaster Crystal Miller from Modern Warfare Zombies is a descendant of this Dempsey family. This works incredibly well as it gives us a southern woman descended from the Dempsey family but with a different surname. It's just a callback to Misty. Liberty Falls is quite a tight-knit community, and so, this possible relation aside, it's extremely likely that if this Tank Dempsey is from there, he could exposit on a lot of the town's dark lore, especially seen as Liberty Falls is a sort of focal point for Ashes of the Damned. Moving forward to Takeo.
Takeo hails from 16th century feudal Japan. He's a disgraced samurai.
The COD blog then says Takeo Masaki is a disgraced ronin who wandered 1591 feudal Japan without master or honor, carrying the weight of his exile as a yoke he cannot cast off. Bound by a code he only still barely believes in, he seeks redemption in the chaos of battle. His blade both a burden he must bear and a judgment on his enemies. While we've only got as much information here as the other characters, I think I may have actually found exactly what is the centerpiece of Takeo's story, because they've chosen a very well documented and exciting time in history, the Japanese Warring States period. This is a time spanning almost 2 centuries in Japan and is marked by constant chaos and conflict in the country between rival warlords vying for control, much like the dark ether we find ourselves in now. And so perhaps Takeo may feel at home. The date we are given for Takeo's last known year in the real world puts him right at the end of this period in Japanese history. In one of the final events that stood between Toyotomi Hideyoshi, considered the second great unifier of Japan, and total peace across the realm, it would seem that Takeo's story has him as a samurai not on the side of this legendary ruler, but on the side of the rebels. This event we are looking at is the Konoha Rebellion. Konoha Castle was held by a possible successor to the Nanbu clan, a powerful samurai family, but one of several claimants to the title. When the head of the house died, the clan broke out into chaos with the rival branches, all believing themselves to be the rightful heir. One of these branches sided with Toyotomi, and as so were recognized as their true heirs. This angered those in Konoha Castle, however, as they believed they were the true heirs and so rebelled. Toyotomi sent 60,000 men to suppress the rebellion in that which began on March 1591, and by September they had reached the gates of the castle. After only 4 days of defending, the head of the Konoha clan agreed to surrender after being given a proposal that he and the other defenders would be pardoned. The clan head's brother, who was on the side of the attackers, was let into the castle to accept the surrender, but the attackers immediately broke their promises, attacking their surrendering family and executing them, including the clan head himself. The remaining defenders of the castle, including all of the women and children, were then forced into the castle's second bailey, where a fire was lit, killing them all. Takeo, samurai of the Masaki clan, was almost certainly sworn in service to the Konoha at this last battle of this period of chaos, and this is likely why Takeo this time is quite so conflicted. All he sought to do was serve his lord, who had held a castle as he was meant to do, but then due to pure politics, he was barred from claiming his birthright. In this situation, standing up for the law was the honourable thing to do, and so Takeo fought with honour here. And yet, history remembers Takeo's lord as a rebel, and Toyotomi as a legend, in spite of the fact he made family betray family and burn children alive. The most interesting and chilling part of all of this is the fact that Takeo is still alive. At the time, the honor code that samurai were meant to live by meant that if one's master died, especially in rebellion, a samurai sworn to them should die with them. In this siege, if Takeo was there, surely he would have either died fighting the invaders by seppuku after being captured, or in the fire, trying to defend the innocents. Instead, we find him wandering as a ronin, a masterclass samurai, seen as a fate of total dishonor. It might be then that Takeo wasn't there at the time, or worse still, he fled. Perhaps this version of Takeo is less brave than his other selves, and maybe it is this that haunts him. We can't know for sure. Equally, we can't know how exactly he ended up in the dark ether. It would be easy to say the dimensional veil was weakened by the fire, but Takeo entered the dark ether as a ronin, meaning he had already fled the scene. Just what did Takeo find? Was it some sort of artifact, like Syraxis in the islands surrounding Japan, or something else? Finally, we move to everyone's favourite character, Edward Richtofen.
Last but not least, Richtofen comes from the 1940s in a timeline in which Germany won World War II.
The COD blog then further elaborates. Dr. Edward Richtofen, a brilliant but unhinged scientist and hero of the Reich, finds himself torn from 1945 in a world where the Axis powers triumphs over the Allied nations. Shaped by ambition and tainted by corruption, he masks his innate sadism and considerable ego behind quick wit and a charming smile. He vows that reality itself will ultimately bow to him. his designs. Whereas all of these characters are torn from different realities and timelines, Richtofen appears to be from the only one that is truly divergent in any meaningful way. As we've known about thanks to leaks for quite some time now, Richtofen hails from a world in which Germany won World War II. But from the information we get here, alongside his character model, we can actually make a few guesses at quite a lot of other aspects. Quite prominently, he has a Group 935 patch on his arm. Considering this, along with the fact that he's allegedly the hero of the Reich, we can assume that Group 935 in this world played a far more major role than in the original Ether dimension. Back then, though 935 were doing world-leading research, 935 was held back by several things. First and foremost, they didn't have enough Element 115 to create the necessary amount of wonder weapons needed to outlast and outclass the Allies, or a large enough army of undead. In addition to this, the undead army, that was largely the area of focus for Dr. Ludwig Maxis, couldn't be properly embedded with commands, making them somewhat useless. Finally, and most importantly, Richtofen was actively sabotaging all of 935's research in order to further his own splinter group's research into the MPD. Now, for 935 to be successful, most, but perhaps not all, of these points basically have to be made opposite. To me, the most impactful thing to change here is Richtofen's schism from 935. If 935 had the full force of Richtofen's genius at its disposal, the man who was able to build a totally self-sustaining moon base in less than 5 years, and nearly single-handedly became a literal god in control of the ether, they could have definitely solved the problem of lacking enough 115 or breaching the trust barrier. This raises a really interesting point though. How do you get Richtofen to stay on side? Because if we think back, the biggest reason for Richtofen following his own path in the first place was entirely because Ludwig Maxis made a secret deal with the Nazi party. This disgusted Richtofen, who thought the Nazis were small-minded compared to his far greater ambitions, and also would cause severe issues for many of his respected colleagues, who weren't German scientists, but instead from all over the world, as 935 was originally an international organization in the pre-war period. We know from the description the blog gives us that Richtofen is shaped by ambition and tainted by corruption, and that he vows that reality itself will ultimately bow to his designs, whereas the other three are haunted by their experiences. We're explicitly told that Richtofen is tainted by corruption, much like his ultimate self in the Ether storyline. This may just be referring to the soul tearing we see in the cutscene, but why then is it not mentioned for the other characters? And why is it mentioned in the context of his ambition and desires for reality? It seems to be that, once again, Richtofen knows far more than he is letting on. And whereas for Dempsey, Takeo, Nikolai and Requiem, they all may have well ended up here accidentally, whereas Richtofen may well have come here with a purpose. With that in mind, let's get back to his reality. Why did Group 935 win the war? Well, perhaps in this reality, where the corruption Richtofen endured gave him incredible foresight. If we assume this is a realm of the Dark Ether, but not necessarily the main dimension, it may well be that, in that world, Richtofen had the foresight to know the issues that teleporting Maxis away in 1945 would cause, and instead, he killed him immediately after returning from the moon the very first time, taking control of the entirety of Group 935. Richtofen may well have discovered the tomb in newly occupied France, seizing the 115 there and totally flattening Europe before forcing America into submission either through threats or, much like Man in the High Castle, which this seems to draw inspiration from, through actually achieving nuclear technology before the Americans and bombing Washington DC. Indeed, in this world, Richtofen would have so much advanced technology that nuclear weapons would be nothing by comparison to what he could do. Group 935 in this dimension will be so strong as to rival the Nazi party themselves, and so Richtofen will likely be one of the most influential men in the world. This isn't enough for him though, as it is never enough. And so here, I think, would be where he set out to conquer reality itself through the Dark Ether's power. And this makes complete sense because the jump pads in Ashes of the Damned have Group 935 branding on them. And in fact, from us playing the Vandom Flam beta, if we go up to the generator to turn on power, and we know there's going to be a generator at every point of interest in Ashes of the Damned, there is a Group 935 logo on them as well. This means that Group 935, likely the same Group 935 from Richtofen's dimension, has been exploring Ashes of the Damned and harnessing the Dark Ether for a while. Meaning Richtofen does probably have a purpose here, and he is probably the one responsible for setting all of these things in place, and is probably the one with much more foresight about what is going on through the storyline, just like his Ultimates and Premise selves before. Very exciting stuff. We have assumed here that these dimensions are realms of the old Ether multiverse, with these characters being cast here after the collapse of the old multiverse in Takeo. This may well have been instantaneous for these characters, but this would be billions of years real time. We can't know that for sure. However, given Treyarch are playing fast and loose with canon now, it may be that different realities exist alongside this new universe now, which will certainly be a kick in the teeth for the Takeo ending, or that they somehow exist in the dark ether, though I'm not sure what the difference would be in that case. The multiverse may also be back after the Sentinel artifact was activated on Reckoning, considering it mirrors the universe created with the Agarthan device at the ending of Takeo, so potentially that's why they spawned. The only other possibility I can see is that we are being lied to, and the twist we'll get later is that the realms these characters are from are somehow not what they seem. For me, that's what I'm leaning towards, as the other possibilities here just don't make enough sense in terms of canon to me. Especially with the fact that the characters are described as having souls, but they shouldn't have souls because Ultimus, Primus, and all other unseen iterations of them all seemingly shared the same souls, which should have been purged with the Agarthan device and the summoning key, the elemental shard. Now it does seem like we're going to be exploring their backstories more in the DLC for the map, as apparently we're going to be getting a Shoin temple beneath an erupting volcano, which is probably Taku's map. We're going to Afghanistan for Nikolai. We're apparently getting a Vietnam map for Dempsey, and there's a rumored Nazi New York map after the Nazis won World War II, and a bomb was apparently dropped on the city. Now obviously these are just concepted maps, it's possible some may be cancelled, we'll have to wait and see, nothing is confirmed just yet. That aside, the time periods they've chosen for these character backstories are all really interesting, and I think they may make them different enough that they feel fresh to the old iterations of them that we saw before, and give us new mysteries to explore. Richtofen is obviously the most enigmatic thanks to his totally new timeline, but I'm also really interested in Takeo, given he is now a samurai who has had all of his honor taken from him, and we've already been able to hear dialogue of course for these characters, and Richtofen kind of doesn't sound any different to his ultimate self. He's indistinguishable. Obviously the fact they won World War II is probably going to be the major difference, but he's just as psychotic, just as homoerotic, and the quotes we've heard from Dempsey sound more rusty and brazen, which I like, and Takeo sounds really different. It sounds like a really unique version of this character, especially because he was from a much older period than we've seen of him before, which is really cool. I'm really interested in seeing Takeo unfold, given he is now a samurai who has had all of his honor taken from him. I'll be interested to see how he comes to terms with that. But what do you guys think? Are you interested in seeing how these new characters progress throughout the DLC season? We also have the space station map that's rumored, which could be DLC 1 or the finale map. We'll have to wait and see how that ties into any of these characters. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not able to the greatest Call of Duty news information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye. To conclude this video, I want to shout out the fact that I finally decided to make a Patreon and Cameo account, both of which will be linked below if you want to help support the channel. On Patreon, you can sign up for the lowest tier of just $1.50 a month to get exclusive access for my Discord, where we can discuss Zombies lore, trivia, or whatever you desire. A place where you lot, my community, can better connect. Your names will also appear at the end of videos thanking you. For $5.50 a month, you get all of that, and I will be doing exclusive monthly Q&As. And for $16.50 a month, you again get all of that, and I will be doing exclusive lore videos, such as unpacking niche parts of the Treyarch documents I've been breaking down on my channel that don't as much suit a main channel video. For the highest tier, only for those with the ability to and who really want to help out the channel, you get special bonuses I've yet to determine and verbal shoutouts at the end of every video. Over on Cameo, I can do funny videos reading lines from Zombies, memes like how do we tell him, birthday wishes for friends or family, or whatever else you desire, practically anything. Of course, none of this is necessary, just watching and enjoying the videos helps me immensely and I greatly appreciate it. However, I think it's about time I start setting up additional revenue streams because Zombies' popularity is tumultuous and always goes through ups and downs. As I'm sure you've lately seen on the channel, viewership is down a lot. We go through big highs when new games release, but then during these drought periods, I need more income stability so I don't have to worry as much about it and I can focus more on improving the quality of the content. My highest quality videos are not always the ones that best please YouTube algorithms, so instead, this way I can produce my best work knowing I don't have to think as much about how well the content's going to perform. So if you'd like to support me on Patreon for exclusive content or would like a simple Cameo message, you can do so to further support me via the links below, but only if you can afford it and you actually want to help me. Don't feel like you are forced to, don't worry, I'll survive. It would just help relieve some of the pressure during inconsistent periods on the channel, so I don't have to solely rely on AdSense revenue, and still maintain the sheer quantity and quality of content that I put out. Obviously, I pump out literally a boatload of content, and some of these are absolutely crazy projects over hour-long videos, so it's a lot on my plate, especially when these videos don't perform particularly well. And I've not been doing many sponsorships lately to help supplement revenue either, so it would greatly help. Thank you for any generous person once again who does kindly support the channel. It means the absolute world and will really help keep this boat afloat.